Late night Graham Torrington on the BBC across the Midlands. I'm here Sunday to Thursday, 10 to 1. If the papers are to be believed, we are going out and spending our money at a much higher rate than at any time in the last decade. In April, we spent £7 billion of clothes, gadgets, food and other retail goods. That's £500,000 more than at the same time last year. The Office for National Statistics said the amount of goods shifted by high street shops and supermarkets increased by 6.9% compared with the April last year, also up by 1.3% in just a month. Supermarkets had their strongest year-on-year growth since January 2002. But it comes after figures reveal that inflation has risen for the first time in 10 months, dashing hopes of an early end to the squeeze on family incomes. So, the question I'm asking you tonight is, have you gone out and treated yourself? And what the reasons are if you have. Share your thoughts right now on Late Night Graham Torrington, 03453 009956. You can text me, 81333, start your text with GT, and emails please to gt@bbc.co.uk. Maybe it's the weather, bank holidays, they've been stacking up at the moment, maybe a need for a new wardrobe for the summer. And the big thing, of course, is, can you really afford it? Someone who can talk about spending in the economy is economist and wealth manager Jonathan Davis. Jonathan, thank you very much indeed for joining me on the programme tonight.
My great pleasure, Graham.
Are we feeling more confident with our personal finances to go out spending like this?
I imagine people probably are feeling a little bit more confident. Of course, the economic statistics have been very positive since last year, beginning of last year. There was quite good economic growth after 3 years of dead flat, practically no growth at all, 2010, 11 and 12. And of course there will also be growth again this year. And largely it's down to, I think, one particular thing that happened last year, which was this Help to Buy. So that got the housing market going again. And when the housing market goes again, it means, of course, that people can sell their properties for top dollar, which is, of course, what they're doing at the moment. So that's releasing some cash into the system. And on top of that, quite curiously, a lot of people have been receiving quite sizable payments for PPI claims, which, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm getting about 2 phone calls a day. Have you claimed PPI? Immediately slam the phone down. But a lot of people are getting some money for this.
So there's cash around. So instead of saying, well, we've hung on to that same car for the last 5 years, we're now going to spend the money we've had for maybe from PPI on that new car that we've been waiting for.
Well, that's certainly true, although, funnily enough, you mentioned cars. Actually, the bulk, and this is quite frightening, the bulk of new cars sold to private individuals in the UK are largely on tick. The bulk of the purchase price is on hire purchase. So it's not actually using cash, it's using yet more debt. But there's no doubt, there is confidence around, there is economic growth around at the moment, and people, I would suggest to you, are not really thinking much about the future. They're assuming, things are going well just now, they'll go well for the long term. Let's go out and spend. Well, you know, good luck to them. I think they should be more prudent than that.
Okay, well, I'm not an economist, but I do seem to remember when all this started, this recession business, we were being told all the time, we need to go out and spend.
Well, of course, the politicians and the central bank, the Bank of England, that's what they want people to do. They want people to borrow. They want people to spend. And they tell people that if they do that, then all will be well. Well, it'll be okay for the bank, it'll be okay for the politicians, but the people are left with the debt. That's the problem. And debt levels, of course, are rising again astronomically, and households are up to their eyeballs in debt. Now, of course, the base rate, the Bank of England base rate, is the lowest in history. It's been this low since 2009, which was one of the reasons why we got out of the dire situation of the crash in 2008. and that interest rate has stayed the same since then. It's funny, they call it the emergency rate. I don't see an emergency, but that's what it is. So mortgage costs came down. The thing that people aren't thinking about, however, is the next time we have a recession, and my barber asked me, do you think we're going to have a recession? I said, well, I'm not saying we're having a recession tomorrow or next year, but we're going to have a recession at some point. He said, oh yeah, good point. So the next time we have a recession, you know what, Graham? The one thing they will not be able to do that the politicians have done for about the last 40 years, they will not be able to slash interest rates because it's at 0.5%. It's practically at rock bottom already. And that actually terrifies me because in the recessionary conditions, businesses will be going bust, jobs will be lost, and if you haven't got an income, even if the mortgage cost is very low, you will not be able to service that mortgage. I'm thinking that 2008 will be seen as the hors d'oeuvre, and unfortunately the next one will be the main course, entering us into actual depression.
Well, let me ask you then, what's your advice to anyone who's got maybe the odd extra £50 left over at the end of the month? Should they be thinking about treating the family? Is that a good idea, or should they be investing it? And what should they be doing with it?
I mean, I know this is, for some of your listeners, going to sound awful, but if it's only £50 a month, then that's not actually going to be life-changing. But to answer your question, if the reason why they've got £50 a month spare because they're spending so much on servicing debt, such as we mentioned earlier, on the car, on the kitchen, on the extension, on the first mortgage itself, and so on the credit cards, get rid of the debt if you possibly can. Because although, and this is something which, again, most people are not talking about, although the base rate is low and mortgages are very low, certainly historically, other forms of debt interest is actually very high. Credit card debt is particularly high. Store card debt is really high. So that's the kind of stuff you want to get rid of as quickly as possible, and don't put it back on again because, as I say, that's what everyone was doing up till 2008. They got those borrowers out of the quagmire by slashing interest rates. They won't be able to do that the next time. So if you've got a whole load of debt the next time there's a recession, I don't know what you're going to do.
Well, after all that, I hope the sun shines for this bank holiday weekend. Jonathan, thank you very much indeed for joining me in the programme tonight. It's Late Night Graham Torrington to the BBC across the Midlands. Maybe you got some thoughts on what Jonathan had to say there. Have you gone out and treated yourself? And what are your reasons if you have? Share your thoughts. Share your story right now, Late Night Graham Torrington. 03453 009956. I'm waiting for your call right now.